guys, let's get more news about Warriors, but first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Warriors reveal Jonathan Kuminga update before Grizzlies game. In their quest to avoid the play-in tournament and possibly move up in the Western Conference standings, the Golden State Warriors face a big game with big playoff implications on Tuesday against the Memphis Grizzlies. They currently hold 6th place in the West with a 43-31 record, but they're just half a game ahead of the 7th-place Minnesota Timberwolves. Meanwhile, Memphis is in 5th place at 1 game ahead of the Warriors with a 44-30 record. Golden State forward Jonathan Kuminga left Sunday's 148-106 victory over the San Antonio Spurs due to a pelvis injury. The team has announced that he's questionable for Tuesday's game. Kuminga was a disappointment in his first 2 NBA seasons, but this season and last, he has emerged as a key player for the Warriors. He's averaging 16.0 points in 25.0 minutes a game this season and is one of their most important reserves. He recently returned after missing over 2 months due to an ankle injury. As a team, the Warriors have won 18 of their last 23 games dating back to when Jimmy Butler made his debut with them. The 6-time All-Star forward has resurrected them and made them, in the minds of many, a team that can do some serious damage in the playoffs this year. But they will have to first get to the playoffs, and with the depth of talent in the Western Conference, getting there isn't necessarily a guarantee for them. Inside the Memphis Grizzlies' shocking firing of Taylor Jenkins. A source close to Green told ESPN, when asked how serious Green was about leaving the franchise he'd won 4 titles with to join the young upstarts he'd feuded with so publicly during a heated 6-game playoff series a year earlier. Green had even called Warriors coach Steve Kerr and teammates Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson to warn them that he was close to joining the Grizzlies via a lucrative sign-and-trade deal, sources told ESPN, before Warriors owner Joe Lacob and new general manager Mike Dunleavy swooped in with a 4-year, $100 million extension to keep him in the Bay. The Grizzlies were just as serious about acquiring Green, sources said, believing his experience, basketball intelligence, and toughness were what the franchise needed as it tried to move past a disastrous season in which superstar point guard Ja Morant had been suspended 8 games by NBA Commissioner Adam Silver for brandishing a firearm in a social media post, and then the Grizzlies endured a disappointing first-round series loss to the 7th-seeded Los Angeles Lakers. Every analysis the team did on its season called for swapping out brash, bruising forward Dillon Brooks for a more mature veteran, someone with a similar edge that Morant and uber-talented young power forward Jaren Jackson Jr. would respect and learn from. Green, who'd had a controversial year of his own in Golden State, was their top choice and Memphis did everything it could, even offering more than he ultimately signed for in Golden State, sources said, to lure him away. They wanted Green so badly, sources said, because he saw not only how good the Grizzlies were during their epic 2022 playoff series, but also how far they still had to go. Memphis is going to get their reality check, Green said after that series. And indeed, everything that has happened in Memphis since that high-water mark in 2022 has been something of a reality check. Ultimately, Memphis pivoted to sign veteran Derrick Rose and trade for guard Marcus Smart in an attempt to fill the void left by Brooks, whose toughness and work ethic were critical, but perhaps underappreciated, cultural tone-setters for the young Grizzlies. But the Smart deal didn't pay dividends, prompting the Grizzlies to trade him to Washington in a salary dump deal before this year's deadline. They'd also tried to trade for Mikal Bridges and Dorian Finney-Smith, sources said, because they knew they needed an elite wing defender to replace Brooks. It remains to be seen whether Morant, Jackson, and Desmond Bane are good enough to develop into the kind of championship contender they once seemed destined to become. If they are, what will it take to get them back on that track? The short answer, they believe, was the decision they made that longtime coach Taylor Jenkins would not be the man to lead them there. He was fired, in one of the more shockingly timed firings in recent NBA history, just 9 games before the playoffs were set to begin. The long answer is more complicated, but it still centers on optimizing Morant. and they're running out of time to find the right leadership and direction to do so. One day after the team fired Jenkins, Memphis general manager Zach Kleiman stood in front of a lectern and explained his decision to fire his head coach and 2 assistants so late in the season. "Urgency is a core principle of ours," he said. "My expectations are clarity of direction." He didn't elaborate beyond those 2 main points. But anyone close to the team this season knows the lack of clarity he was referring to. Offensively, the Grizzlies had become something of a science experiment this season, offering glimpses at how several radical offensive concepts from Europe and spacing principles found in hockey and soccer would work in the NBA, but also how difficult it is to get full buy-in from players to implement them. Lonzo Ball sends blunt Stephen Curry message, "He's got a point." At 37 years old, Stephen Curry's NBA legacy is pretty much secured. At this point, anything that Curry would add to his resume is just a cherry on top of an already tremendous all-time career. There is certainly room to move up the NBA ladder for the greatest shooter of all time. However, if Curry were to retire today, the legendary point guard would still have a solidified spot among the best to ever do it. The Golden State Warriors superstar helped change the way that basketball is played. The NBA would look wildly different had Curry and the Warriors not come along and modernized the game. That part of the legacy for the Warriors guard will never be in question. Chicago Bulls guard Lonzo Ball certainly does not underestimate the impact that Curry and his Warriors have had on basketball. On an episode of the WAE show with Lonzo Ball, the two-way guard opened up on the historic impact that the 4-time champion has had on the game of basketball. Ball said, "Is he the most influential player is actually a great question, and as I'm pondering it, I would have to say yes, actually. Especially the way the younger people are playing. Even the way the NBA is playing now. Warriors and him, they really started all them threes." Ball's assessment of Curry's impact is more than fair. The sharpshooting point guard certainly changed a lot about how offense is played in the NBA. It has resulted in some of the most efficient offensive attacks that the league has ever seen and the most skilled era in the history of the NBA emerging as a result. The old heads may not like it, but Curry certainly has a seat at the table with the other majorly influential figures like Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, etc. And you, fan? What do you think about Lonzo Ball's situation? Write to us in the comments.